Well, we had the most obvious distinction made between the different classes, which was the essential and unessential workers.
Mm.
So that was the first step
Yeah.
to the segregation, telling people that they were unessential for over a year. I mean, imagine the psychological effect
Right.
on being told you're unessential to an entire society. So, again, I'm not really sure exactly how many of the international uh, audience here understand exactly how things dipped from first world conditions to third world. The food banks in Australia were almost completely overrun with demand after the first 6 months of 2020. The lockdowns and the destruction of an open economy and the introduction of the essential economy, it flooded the food banks to the point where they had to close because they were told by police that it was no longer safe for them to operate openly on the street. Um, yeah, as one example, so already they'd created this very foreign sense of poverty because Australia has never really seen it before. Real poverty, like old world poverty, third world poverty. They've never seen it. Suddenly people were hungry. And yet the decision makers behind all of those kinds of mandates, they did not relinquish their decision to continue preventing them from working to feed themselves. So when I see the Atlantic article, Ulster saying, "We didn't know. Whoops, we're sorry."
She doesn't even say
I
we're
mean, people
sorry.
were,
I mean, that's what's
yeah,
it's extraordinary about that. It's saying we were. I mean,
uh,
her strong claim was we were operating in conditions of uncertainty, and nobody knew.
well, the food bank knew. We were very certain that people were starting to starve. Um, that's not a condition of uncertainty. This is where I think the memory loss becomes so dangerous because people don't actually understand exactly how much of the social structure was completely destroyed,
Right.
and very, very quickly. So the food banks knew, and then of course different charitable organizations, they understood it, and then the national mental health telephone lines started to report that their call intakes had gone up, and then they started to report that the people that were calling them, their age had started to go down. They were getting calls from children. Then they started to report the statistics of all of these children that had started calling suicide hotlines to tell everybody that they were harming themselves and they needed somebody to talk to them because they wanted to murder themselves. And when that was reported in mainstream publications, people still didn't discuss ending the lockdowns.
Yeah, this is as we're talking about this now, I'm thinking, yeah, we just lived through this. We know what it
Yeah.
was. I knew how it felt. I was saying I knew from March 2020 that it was going to take longer than 2 weeks, but
Mm.
nothing of the. I mean, and they're claiming it was all about the disease, propagation and worrying about. But we knew it wasn't. I mean, it's like there's an interesting story going around now that I've seen a lot in the clips that come through our university clip service that um, that acquired immune deficiency syndrome is actually genetically whatever developed out of in the European populations because of the effect of the Black Death. Like, are you? Excuse me, are you kidding me? Right? It's like, oh, we're gonna look. I'm looking where the chat is going to be entertained by this, right? Whether whatever happened in the 14th century in Europeans developing immunity effectively to the Black Death is now going to start issuing itself in the development of acquired immune deficiency syndrome. Way to pretend that you didn't just inject people with something that might have that effect. Oh no, we're gonna have to
hurt my brain.
I know we're gonna have to pretend that it's actually medieval.
It was a Dark Ages problem.
It was a Dark Ages. The Dark Ages brought us like, no, the Dark Ages was 2 years ago when you were suddenly I want to like, I really want to get into this. What did we feel happened to society over the course of all of this? Because we were constantly being distracted and deflected with the statistics and the numbers and the, you know, the counts, and everybody knows all of us have been watching all of the way the charts changed. At first it was deaths, and then it was cases, and then it was who knows what, right? It's no matter what, you need to keep the statistical fear heightened. But that,
yes,
and we did also recognize that, you know, there's the debt bubble and the countries that are having to deal now with the collapsing of our economic systems and such, and that was there. But what you're describing is the ground level willingness to participate in this and what that meant for this whole social structure.
That's where I focused most of my attention. After a while I had to tune out to statistics because I didn't care. Because to me, it seemed quite irrelevant when I was looking at what was going on in front of my own face. Yeah. And this is what people stopped doing. They were following the screen. The screen was telling them the stats, the stats, the stats. These are the numbers. These are the numbers. These are the numbers. I was looking at my country, which now feels like a foreign country. And, you know, I always make the joke we got deported in 2020 and they just didn't want to admit it.
Which arc did you get set on? I mean, I think we do have this arc imagery for what we're doing in the streams here, but this feeling of being in this little subset of people that sort of floated off.
Yep. Yeah. It was like Gilligan's Island, you know? And then of all of these odd, eccentric, disparate people who'd collected together to say, you know, what the hell's going on here? But so you know, you've got the statistical hypnosis, people that are glued to those numbers. Then I was looking around thinking, this place is hell on earth. Do you guys notice that kids are miserable? Like, everyone looks depressed at best, psychotic at worst. People are pushing each other out of storefronts. They were fighting over toilet paper in the supermarkets. Like, just a basic observation of what was actually happening. Nobody was dying in the thing. I haven't seen one body, even though that's what we were presented with way back in 2019. You know, it was like Wuhan, oh my God, the Chinaman is dying in the streets, and it's like there's bodies everywhere, and quick, load them into the ambulances.
That's why the Black Death imagery is so important to me. The chat's talking about, is the acquired symptom set only to be found in Euro populations? Who knows? I mean, I couldn't read that article, but two, I like this. Mike is saying 6 centuries to create the curve. Yeah. That's like, that we've stretched the epidemiological argument to be outside of the band that we were being trained to pay attention to here. But they wanted it to be like Monty Python, bring out your dead with carts of dead and
yeah. I mean, that's what it was presented as in northern Italy as well. You know, my friends in Italy, they said, oh, you know, have you seen the footage? The nonna, she's being loaded on the trolley and in the hospital, and they're, you know, all these old Italians are all getting loaded into, you know, ambulances. Well, I was thinking, hold on a second. Italians, like Greeks, when they're old, really like going to hospital. They'll call and they'll go to hospital. It's like a day spa, okay? I know this sounds harsh, but it's a cultural thing. I'm going to die, take me to ambulance.
Right.
So there's that. There's also the fact that they're old already. We don't know why they're being loaded in. So I was like, okay, that's what the media is presenting to everybody. It's all these people getting loaded into ambulances and dead bodies on the street. In Australia, nothing. Crickets. Nobody collapsed. I didn't see a single person collapse once of anything. What I did see was a lot of people assaulted in the streets for not complying with orders.
Talk a bit more
I've
about.
seen a lot of people injured by this.
No, can you? Because I remember seeing, it's like you're talking about the equine class, right? That one, there was that one video of the guy in that white horse that he got arrested, right?
Oh, the hottest man in the country.
Bring back knights and horsemen, yes. But so,
yes.
you know, that we were getting some of the videos of your street protests, and the horses were obviously both on both sides of that. Can you describe any of the? Give us a bit more detail on some of what was going on with the guy and the horses. What was going on with the policemen and the horses?
Sure. So, the police force in every single state were instructed to annihilate any people who had decided that the public health measures were actually not only dangerous but potentially fatal to people. They had been, I think, briefed in a lot of cases that this was anti-government protesting, which is why I refuse to pin it on the government. Because this is the rhetoric that's being given now, even in New Zealand. Oh, well, we've got to watch for these people that don't like what the government did with COVID and blah, blah, they're anti-government. It wasn't that at all. It was normal people that realized the bureaucracy had hijacked their ability to have any say in what was going on. Had started organizing all of these protests that were going to be peaceful little rallies here and there, but they were immediately met with armies of stormtroopers. You know, it was like Star Wars. You know, you could hear the music in the background, dun 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 dun, just like insane use of force, very early, very quickly. A lot of police officers on mounted police officers on giant horses. Now, Australians are not an armed population. They're also very relaxed in the sense that we don't even have soccer riots here. You know, it's not like in Europe where you got like a bunch of drunk Englishmen and the football team loses and they're running through the streets like smashing statues or nothing. Like we have no culture whatsoever of giant outbursts of public violence. So suddenly groups of families with small kids were facing lines of mounted police officers on enormous horses. Enormous horses.
There was that that one woman, was that in Australia or Canada, where that woman in the cane was trampled? That was in Ottawa, wasn't it? That was in winter.
Yes, we had tramples here. Yeah. People were also trampled here. And you know, from the perspective of a lot of us that were sitting down and looking at this, we thought, hold on, this is inappropriate use of force. There is no threat here to public safety. Because if you were actually scared of getting infected by something, you would stay inside. You would not go and meet the infected super spreaders in the streets. Right. You would all stay inside and avoid the contagious vectors or whatever the hell that they'd been reclassified as.
I'm having so much trouble as we're talking about this, feeling like it was real.
Yeah, it's
so interesting.
It's strange. Well, because all of these Aussies rock up and then they're met with an enormous show of force, suddenly they're realizing, hold on a second, we're now in a kind of combative mode against our own police force. Whereas previously, we've not had these kinds of street protests.